Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1039B, and today's date is August 3rd, 2016, and the title of the episode is Obama Authorizes 30 Days of Bombing. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the last couple of days, we've been talking about the Zika virus, and we know it's been around for like 69 years. We know the Rockefeller Foundation holds the patent. And we know that the United States government central bankers, they're pushing an agenda. Now, many believe there is a new psyop about to happen, maybe later this summer into the fall. And it looks like they are using the pre-propaganda to build this up. Now, we're getting another indicator that this might be the case because we can see that the U.S. Allergy and Disease Institutes, they launched a human clinical trials on the Zika virus vaccine. And this was developed earlier this year by the National Institutes of Health. And we can see right now they have finished their testing on animals, which has been very encouraging, they say. And they're saying that they're pleased with everything they've done, and they can proceed with the initial study in people. The U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention activated an emergency response team to the city of Miami, Florida, after Governor Rick Scott announced the discovery of 14 new Zika cases. And we can see they're already prepping the U.S. for this. They're already prepping the people to receive the vaccine. And we can see already that this is a new psyop. I mean, if this becomes huge through the corporate media, now I'm not saying that Zika is going to be all over the place, but they can make it seem like it's a lot worse than it really is. Now, they've only found 14 cases. How many people are there in the United States? Or just in Florida? But with the corporate media, they can make people afraid, scared. You have to get this vaccine, especially those people who want to have children. And we know that this has nothing to do with that. This is about the pharmaceutical industry, vaccines, and maybe declaring a state of an emergency. And we're going to have to watch this situation very carefully. We see that North Korea allegedly fired a ballistic missile into the sea today. South Korea has been reporting this. So has Japan. And Japan is saying that the firing of this ballistic missile plunged into Japan's exclusive economic zone. And following this missile launch, Japan's government submitted a protest to the North Korean through its diplomatic ties in Beijing. And we can see already South Korea and the U.S. and Japan are saying, okay, we need more defensive weapons. We need to increase our military budgets. And this is what it's all about. Preparing for this upcoming war. This is why they've been moving military assets and troops, increasing military budgets for the last couple of years. And we've been following and tracking this, and we can see that there has been a huge buildup in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the Pacific. And this is in preparation for what is coming. Now, the UN, they are warning about the escalating tension in eastern Ukraine. They're saying it hit its highest casualties since last August. And they're very worried about this because they're looking at the situation at the contact line. There is more shelling. It's really heating up. And it's funny how the corporate media not even touching this. They don't even want you to know what is going on in Ukraine, because what we're seeing right now is that the United States government central bankers, they're bombing in Libya, bombing in Yemen, getting prepared to go into Sudan. They're in Iraq bombing and in Syria, and now we have Ukraine. It's starting to feel like a world war because the U.S. is fighting all over the place. And let's not forget about the Pacific. with the U.S. provoking China and North Korea all at the same time. Now, do they care about getting into a war with China, Russia, North Korea, especially those nations that have nuclear weapons? No, they don't. This is why the Obama administration has given the go-ahead for work on upgrading the B-61 airborne nuclear bomb. They're upgrading the nuclear arsenal. Now, the decision by the NNSA authorized the program to enter a post-engineering phase, which comes after 4 years of work to, in technical terms, preserve a critical element of the U.S. nuclear triad and the extended deterrent. So we can see already that as a result of all this, they'll be upgrading the bombs. Now, why are they doing this? I thought Obama was out there telling the entire world that we should get rid of nuclear weapons. But here we are upgrading. Very interesting. What are they preparing for once again? They're preparing for war. Now, a couple days ago, we reported on a U.S. military satellite that was launched. It was a satellite that they really didn't talk about. But now we know it's the MUOS-5, the Mobile User Objective System. And this satellite was a communications satellite meant to provide ultra-high frequency communications for the U.S. military over areas in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. There was one problem with the satellite. It failed to reach its intended orbit this week, and it is not functional. Now, this was the last of 5 satellites which are used by the mobile U.S. troops as a high-speed global cellular network for secure voice, data, and video communications. And the whole thing did not work out, and right now it's just not functional. And this might be a problem for the upcoming missions throughout the region. And this is something that we need to keep an eye on because we can see that things are heating up all across the Middle East at this point, Eastern Europe, and the Pacific. Now, as we know, Obama has authorized the bombing of Libya. And the Italian defense minister is going to let the United States use its bases for strikes against the Islamic State. But they want to make it clear that Italy has not been involved so far in any way in the U.S. strikes against the Islamic State. That will come later. And we know right now there are special op teams inside of Libya. France is there, UK is there, the United States is there. So there are ground troops inside of Libya. So Obama is out there, and he's saying that the Libyan airstrikes, they're critical to the U.S. security. Now, the airstrikes have continually going on. It's on its second day right now. And of course, they're using the cover story that they're going after the Islamic State. And he said that the strikes are needed to ensure that Libya's fragile new government, you know, the government that the people didn't elect, well, we need to make sure that this new government of national accord is able to finish the job. Now, of course, as we know, there's 2 other governments inside of Libya right now in different regions. The people elected these governments. And we can see that the U.S., they want control of the entire region. So Obama has authorized 30 days of bombing in Libya. So it started August 1st. Simply amazing. Congress has been taking their break. They don't come back after Labor Day. And here we have 30 days of bombing in Libya. Now, I'm expecting other events to occur during this period. As we can see, it always seems to happen where the United States government, central bankers, do something during this period when Congress goes on break. We see that the Islamic State oil revenues, they are down by 90%. So right now, the Islamic State, pretty much, they're done for. Now, of course, the corporate media is still playing them up, how they can hit us at any time, because they need the fear factor. Who do they have left? They need to use the Islamic State to convince us that they're coming for us. Now, Turkish politicians and activists, they want Ankara to close the facilities of the Incirlik Air Base. They're saying that NATO and Washington, they were using this base to destabilize the Middle East. Well, that's exactly what they were using it for. And Erdogan at the time was allowing this. Now, chairman of the Freedom and Solidarity Party, they maintain that Incirlik is a major stumbling block on Turkey's way to independence. Since the United States has used it to carry out plans in the region, the main goal of creating the base was to redraw the entire map of the Middle East, he said. Incirlik served as a command and control center of the coup, and at this point, we want the U.S., NATO forces out of this base. So this is another indicator that they understand that the United States, Gulen, they were behind the coup. And we can see that this is a major problem for the neocons, the elites, in their goal to remove Assad. And at this point, I think we should be a little worried about what's going on in Syria. Now, we can all say, well, everything will work out. There's a peace deal going on, ceasefire. Maybe the U.S. doesn't want Assad removed at this point. Well, I think they've been at this for so long, they have blinders on, and all they can see is Assad be removed. Unless there's some way they can get Assad to keep that small Alawite section in Syria, and the U.S. have the entire rest of the country. So right now, we understand that the Islamic State is beaten in Syria. The U.S., they're backed against a wall. And they're doing whatever they possibly can to convince the world that Assad, Russian forces, they're creating problems in this region. And of course, John Kerry came out with a statement that the humanitarian aid into Aleppo might be a ruse. And we can see today that terrorists are blocking the exit of civilians in the eastern part of Aleppo. And they're threatening the civilians with shooting or public execution. They don't want to lose Aleppo. So we can see out of the Daily Mail, they're saying that Assad has dropped napalm on Aleppo. They're also saying he's using chlorine gas, chemical weapons once again. But we know that this is complete propaganda. We know the U.S. government central bankers, they're doing whatever they possibly can to convince the world we still need to have Assad removed. And they won't stop. It's funny how they're using the same propaganda over and over and over. It didn't get traction in the beginning. It's not going to get traction now. People are realizing that this is complete propaganda. So the Russians are out there. They have informed the United States that it was the moderate rebels, it was the terrorists that were using the toxic substances. And the U.S. response to this was, we know nothing about this. What are you talking about? So you're saying the U.S., who backs the moderate rebels and all the terrorist groups, who funds them, supplies them with aid, military assets, has satellites above the area, has special op teams inside of Syria, building 2 bases, along with the French, the UK, and the rest. They have no idea what's going on. Of course they do. They know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what they're doing at this point. What they're trying to do is figure out a way where they can say this ceasefire peace deal is off. Look what Assad is doing. Russia is involved in this. You're using chemical weapons on the people. You lied to us, and all bets are off. We're going after Assad. And it seems we're heading down that path. And we need to watch this situation very closely, because as we move forward and we move throughout this month of August into the fall, I think things are going to accelerate in a way that we've never seen before. I think this 30-day bombing in Libya will not end in 30 days. I think it will continue. I think this is what Obama has the authorization to do. I think he has up to 90 days or so. And I think that we'll see this extended. And I see right now that the Middle East, they're trying to recapture the entire thing. This is why Ashton Carter was out there talking about that we're going to have to go into all these different countries to maintain control. And I think they've already started this, because we see the U.S. and the coalition forces, they're everywhere. Now, we have to remember something very important here. During the time, going back a couple of months, Ashton Carter went around to all the European nations, and they all brought in military equipment, troops, assets. They had drills in Jordan. All that stuff is still sitting there. And I believe they were trying to have this coup in Turkey to ramp up their plans. Now, since this didn't go well and it was botched, their plans have been pushed back. But I think they'll have an alternative plan. I think they're going to move forward with it, because they're running out of time. And when I say we're running out of time, is they need something to distract everyone from this economic collapse. They need some type of an event. And we talked about it yesterday. We talked about it in many reports. And we're coming up to this point right now where this is going to continue. It's not going to stop. And it's just going to get worse as time goes on. So we need to watch the situation very, very carefully, because we're entering a period of where things are really going to get out of hand. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.